Greetings. Our story idea today is that Tesla Shanghai saves Tesla in a depression zone. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We're in a place called Redondo Beach, California, and as you can see, very nice setting today. We might get attacked by the seagulls, but we know we'll get your assistance in that regard. So today's show focuses on the fact that I'm actually here in Redondo because we're actually working on due diligence relative to SpaceX for the second day here, and we definitely appreciate all of you coming aboard this early, and we'll say hello at the end. That way we don't mess up on our show. So I wanted to review the fact that, man, what a crazy trading week, what a crazy week for Tesla. So the biggest news, as you know, is that Tesla actually came out with some good numbers, 88,400. And then the stock screamed up $83 and then completely gave all of that back the next day. And so we're blending that discussion into the rest of the discussion about the fact that it's our belief that 3.0, Gigafactory in Shanghai will actually become 3.0, 3.5, and maybe even 4.5, all at the same time. And we think that those elements will actually save the company. Now, why do I say this? So what's amazing right now is that anytime you have earnings or revenue or statistics, one of the problems is that one group of statistics relates to what did you do this quarter. That's half the party. The other half of the party is what is your forecast. The problem that's popped up is that the current forecast for Tesla is unknown. And we say that because the plant has now been down for 2 weeks in Fremont. And then the question is, how long will that plant be down? So there are two answers that we're hearing, kind of seeing from this. One of them is, oh, no problem, you're going to be down for a couple of weeks, maybe a month. I just saw a report this morning that says that there's a chance that the Bay Area of San Francisco could actually be in lockdown for up to 5 months. So if that actually occurs, there are a large number of businesses that will actually go under in the process. And so we're having, I want to call it a Mexican standoff, but we're having an interesting question. Do you let all of these businesses go out of business, A, or B, do you open back up, risking certain people actually dying from the disease in the process? And so the answer we're going to get for that is going to be coming out pretty soon, and we don't know what that answer is yet, but it's kind of tough because there are a lot of people who can't pay their bills that will make a decision between starving to death with no money, A, or B, hopefully everything opens back up with some risk to life, but folks being able to work have a way different prognosis than those that can't. So I bring all this up because there are all these what-if scenarios. What if the plant in Fremont is down for a month? What if it's down 2 months? What if it's down 3 months? So as those what-ifs keep popping up, it sort of answers the question that sort of popped in my mind was 3 weeks ago, Elon said, hey, we've got $6 billion, so we're not going out of business. And I was really stunned when he said that or the company said that, because you're announcing that. Why? And the answer is they're announcing it because they recognize the potential for the issues that are going on to be long-term. And so if in fact they are long-term, the company is kind of screwed. Now, this is where China and Germany come in. Yes, the German plant got permission to go ahead and build a foundation for that entity, so that's really good news. The issue that's coming up, though, is Elon can't afford to play around anymore. He's got to get to work and get to work fast. And what do I mean by that? Well, what we reviewed is the fact that if Elon had chosen to just build a second Gigafactory next to the one in Shanghai, he could have started in October or November, and he would be producing cars on May 1. Now, because there are a number of buildings that are going up there, it's our estimation that they've already started working on that plan so they could have capacity to expand enough to produce everything China needs, but also start to ship to the global markets. So Elon is a good man, you can't keep him down. So in essence, what we see happening right now is the fact that China is producing right now and selling vehicles. They're only at supposedly about 3,000 vehicles a week, but in theory, with the new buildings, that will become 6,000 to 10,000 vehicles over the next 2 months. If this occurs and Fremont remains in an extended shutdown situation, we have an interesting circumstance right now, which is it turns out that the revenue from China will actually save the company. So we'll keep you posted on how all this works out. The reason this was triggered in my mind is that Jim Cramer, and I don't always agree with him, but I think he's a smart man, made a comment he said, look, this isn't a recession we're in, this is a depression. He then followed on to explain that there are no customers for those businesses. So that's a legitimate argument that right now, because so few people, many people have been through recessions and everybody knows how to handle that, very few of the older people have actually been through a depression and therefore have a clear understanding of when you enter that depression, the type of life one might lead. And so ramping down lifestyle, etc., to address that new reality is part of the game. So we're seeing early signs of this impacting Tesla. So if you think about it, Norway lost 700,000 jobs in this process. And those folks who are the number one per capita buyers of Tesla have actually ceased buying, causing Tesla to have to do furloughs in Norway because the buying process has dropped off so dramatically. So, obviously we're seeing extra inventory here. It was our estimate that Tesla produced something between 100 and 120,000 vehicles in Q1, but only sold 88,000. So one of the good things that they're experiencing right now is that they have that overhang of inventory. So a month of non-production from Fremont is not a big deal. But once that month turns into 1, 2, 3 months, now it becomes a big deal because you have idle factories and no way to make new products to go from. So what we're bringing up here is just the fact that, there's a plan for China to go from 30% self-reliant on parts as of January of 2020, all the way up to 70, 75% by the end of this year. And I think part of the construction that's going on is designed to get them in more of a self-reliant position to produce. So all this said, I think it's unfortunate what's happening in the global economy. I think the Chinese have managed to restart their economic engine. But the problem that's going on right now is even if China restarts, what happens if your global market has shut down so people actually can't get products? So it's an interesting circumstance because we're entering territory few people still alive have a good command of, but for those who are savvy, they can figure out how to manage it well. So I wanted to sort of mention all this to you because we're heading into next week. Tesla's stock price is usually up Mondays and Tuesdays, especially given that we have the 3-day rule hitting either Tuesday or Wednesday of next week based on the new numbers analysts are working on. So basically, what seemed to happen was on Thursday, the numbers came out and they were pretty good. But then on Friday, those numbers didn't do anything. And I think the reason for that is the second portion of evaluation is whether or not, you know, the future, how that future looks is a second part of the evaluation of Tesla's ability to be successful. And our take on it right now is that sort of the future sales situation is kind of ugly, hence the circumstance we're having now of sudden acceleration in stock price and then a drop down. So the biggest issue that'll be coming up is, you know, what's the forecast for production from China to fill the void that's being left by no production in Fremont, number one. Number two, how can countries with lockdown get shipments in and be able to sell cars? So same problem, even if you could produce, can you get them to your destination? And will the customers in those destinations be ready to purchase if they're on lockdown? And so the answer to all these questions is why Tesla may embrace a nice bump in stock price in the near term, but what we're expecting is a fairly severe downdraft for the market, and that market dragging Tesla with it, even though Tesla's circumstance is not as bad as some of the other folks going on right now. So I'd love to hear that, you know, we're doing great, everything is back to normal, life is terrific in a couple of days, but everything I just described sort of sets up the data that we have in front of us right now. Now, rarely do I beat Elon on anything, but as you may recall, I predicted that Tesla would build in Germany, but they should just build a second plant in China. And Elon was like, no, that would give us too much overcapacity if we did that right now. We'll wait on China. Now you're seeing why I said, let's go back and just get another China facility built real quick and delay Germany for a while. A bunch of my viewers were like, hey, the $2,000 car difference on labor and then all the other cost advantages of China are kind of no big deal. And my response to that was, that's true, it's no big deal in a recession or a strong economy, but when you're in a depression and every dollar cost add to that car affects the number of people that are willing to purchase, it is a big deal. So 2 G's off your car price in a recession is a big deal. In a depression, it might be life or death for the company. So this is why I'm saying I think China saves Tesla, because according to Elon, all of the fixed costs on the vehicle are half what they are in the United States when they go to China. So he has the luxury, if sales are strong, of saying, we want to build wherever we want to build, and it doesn't matter. But if you can lower the car, if you can keep your profit margin the same and lower the price of the car by $5,000 to $10,000, that's a whole bunch of people that can now purchase that vehicle that have no interest in picking one up right now. So we will keep you posted on this. And the question is, what did this mean in the short term? Well, one of the challenges of trading or investing in Tesla is that the environment keeps changing, and how do you change to embrace what that new environment is? And so what I really think is, Jim Cramer put the idea of a depression on the table. And if you follow the logic out, legitimately, we're kind of in a depression right now. And the longer the businesses stay closed, the lower the chance they can reopen after this all ends. So if we go 2 months in, I think the chance of the depression sticking around for an extended period, 1, 2 years, etc., becomes higher and higher likelihood. There's a bunch of reasons, but like this morning, I looked in the New York Times and there was an article about the fact that in rural Oregon, there are these bed and breakfasts that have a 3-month-long vacation season in the summer when people would come and avail themselves of that environment. The problem, though, is that if we get out of this, and there are a whole bunch of places across America, across Canada, across the world that rely on that summer season to pay their bills, and they lose a summer season, all those businesses are gone. So you can end up reopening the economy after 5 months, but if you don't have those visitors, tourists, etc., you're now in a horrible position where all these businesses are wiped out and will not reopen, and all those jobs are lost. So I think that the country has a hard decision to make: sacrifice lives to benefit the economic health of the country, or you'll end up having everybody on welfare for an extended period of time otherwise. So it will cause deaths, but it almost seems like it's a necessary evil. So next couple of days are going to be very interesting for Tesla to see what the analysts are saying, because if the analysts are saying Tesla is good to go and the market is down every day 500 points, I don't think there's any choice but to have Tesla's stock price go with where the market is going, because sooner or later Tesla customers are affected by how that market is moving. So I want to kudos to Tesla and Elon and the team for making sure they built in China and built quickly, because it turns out that that build quick strategy in China was a smart move. Now, I think it's a chuckle right now, because if he had chosen to, in the case of Germany, that plant would be ready for another year and a half, while the next round of expansion in China will be ready in 60 days. So I really think that we're starting to enter the zone of, will the company survive? And if China does their thing well, not only will it survive, but it'll make a profit. So it might not be at a monster stock price, but I still think it'll be around healthy and viable as an ongoing organization, which we think is terrific. So I'm hopeful that you guys are going to come up with great data that I didn't, that allows us to go in a different direction than you're seeing right now. But I frankly have not lived through a depression officially, but I can understand what the implications are. And it really means people have to buckle down at every level to make it work, which I think is what's going to occur. Now, true. So anyway, I just wanted to throw out my ideas here in general. We tend to focus on what the stock price does, etc. I really think that the numbers were good, and there'll be some love given to Tesla's stock price from this. But the bigger problem is if we're ending at a depression, and that's confirmed by the analysts relative to business from all the other companies they deal with, I have a hard time seeing how Tesla is going to fight, the entire market in that way. Now, I do have on Patreon, we do have a number of tiers of our viewers that tune in. One of the questions that pops up is, I actually have a couple of puts, and everybody else in our trading group has calls, meaning that between 500 and 525, that's kind of what they're structured on. So in the next 2 days, we're going to find out who's right. And I really think that if the markets limit down a couple of days, regardless of what the analysts have to say, Tesla gets slammed in the process of how the market moves down. Do I want this to be the case? No. I'm happy if it goes up, but I just think that we're entering a whole different mind frame of reality that's driven by all these job losses and everything else that's going on. And even Tesla can't fight it off. And you saw that in that it made a bunch of vehicles they couldn't sell. So I think the lower priced vehicles will continue to sell, and the higher priced ones will not. So that's our general feel for what we see coming up right now. And we're hopeful that the economy begins to reopen so we can eliminate some of this uncertainty and get people back to work and making a living versus taking welfare checks. At any rate, we will be back on tomorrow again. For those of you who are Patreon supporters, we greatly appreciate your support. Subscribers, as well as folks who are visitors, please take time to like and subscribe. We look forward to any comments you guys might have out there. Look forward to your input. I wanted to encourage you on your health tips to be mindful of everything discussed about the virus right now is a good idea. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine about, I go into retail establishments and people are using those keypads to pump in your PIN number. And I just think that's a very bad move. If you don't have a glove on or you don't wipe that thing off, use a napkin or a piece of paper to put your number in rather than, same thing, if that person hands you a pen, do not touch the pen. Use a napkin around the pen and then sign with that so your hands don't have to touch stuff that a whole bunch of people have been touching given how easy it is to be infected. At any rate, again, wanted to thank you for taking time out. We wanted to say au revoir, French, Lehitro, Hebrew, Hoda, Hafez, Farsi, Das Vidanya, Do Virginia, and Hey Do. Wanted to, again, thank our Patreon supporters. We'll have kind of a trading show later on today that we'll be putting out to those folks as well. And then we'll see you tomorrow again. And I'm going to take you out hardcore beat style here. I want to thank you for not giving me a hard time about the bad audio, especially because we've got the waves crashing against the water here, etc. Much appreciated. I didn't get a hardcore thumbs down for that part. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. Have a great day, and bye for now.